Rick, since you're the home team, we'll start with Sam. Sam, is there a God in the sense that most Americans think of him?
There's no evidence for such a God, and it's instructive to notice that we're all atheists with respect to Zeus and the thousands of other dead gods whom now nobody worships.
Rick, what is the evidence of the existence of the God of Abraham?
I see the fingerprints of God everywhere. I see them in culture. I see them in law. I see them in literature. I see them in nature. I see them in my own life. Trying to understand where God came from is like an ant trying to understand the internet. Even the most brilliant scientist would agree that we only know a fraction of a percent of the knowledge of the universe.
Any scientist must concede that we don't fully understand the universe. But neither the Bible nor the Quran represents our best understanding of the universe. That is exquisitely clear.
To you.
There is so much about us that is not in the Bible. Every specific science, from cosmology to psychology to economics, has surpassed and superseded what the Bible tells us is true about our world.
Sam, does the Christian you address in your books have to believe that God wrote the Bible and that it is literally true?
Well, there's clearly a spectrum of confidence in the text. I mean, there's the, this is literally true, nothing even gets figuratively interpreted. And then there's the, this is just the best book we have, written by the smartest people who have ever lived, and it's still legitimate to organize our lives around it to the exclusion of other books. Anywhere on that spectrum, I have a problem, because in my mind, the Bible and the Quran are just books written by human beings. There are sections of the Bible that I think are absolutely brilliant and poetically unrivaled, and there are sections of the Bible which are the sheerest barbarism, yet profess to prescribe a divinely mandated morality. Where do I start? Books like Leviticus and Deuteronomy and Exodus and 1st and 2nd Kings and 2nd Samuel, half of the kings and prophets of Israel would be taken to the Hague and prosecuted for crimes against humanity if these events took place in our own time.
Now to Warren, is the Bible inerrant?
I believe it's inerrant in what it claims to be. The Bible does not claim to be a scientific book in many areas.
Do you believe creation happened in the way Genesis describes it?
If you're asking me, do I believe in evolution, the answer is no, I don't. I believe that God at a moment created man. I do believe Genesis is literal, but I do also know metaphorical terms are used. Did God come down and blow in man's nose? If you believe in God, you don't have a problem accepting miracles. So if God wants to do it that way, it's fine with me.
I'm doing my PhD in neuroscience. I'm very close to the literature on evolutionary biology. And the basic point is that evolution by natural selection is random genetic mutation over millions of years in the context of environmental pressure that selects for fitness.
Who's doing the selecting?
The environment. You don't have to invoke an intelligent designer to explain the complexity we see.
Sam makes all kinds of assertions based on his presuppositions. I'm willing to admit my presuppositions. There are clues to God. I talk to God every day. He talks to me.
What does that actually mean?
One of the great evidences of God is answered prayer. I have a friend, a Canadian friend, who has an immigration issue. He's an intern at this church, and so I said, God, I need you to help me with this, as I went out for my evening walk. As I was walking, I met a woman. She said, I'm an immigration attorney. I'd be happy to take this case. Now, if that happened once in my life, I'd say, that is a coincidence. If it happened tens of thousands of times, that is not a coincidence.
There must have been times in your ministry when you've prayed for someone to be delivered from disease who is not, say, a little girl with cancer.
Oh, absolutely.
So parse that. God gave you an immigration attorney, but God killed a little girl.
Well, I do believe in the goodness of God, and I do believe that He knows better than I do. God sometimes says yes, God sometimes says no, and God sometimes says, wait, I've had to learn the difference between no and not yet. The issue here really does come down to surrender. A lot of atheists hide behind rationalism. When you start probing, you find their reactions are quite emotional. In fact, I've never met an atheist who wasn't angry.
Let me be the first.
I think your books are quite angry.
I would put it at impatient rather than angry. Let me respond to this notion of answered prayer, because this is a classic sampling error, to use a statistical phrase. We know that human beings have a terrible sense of probability. There are many things we believe that confirm our prejudices about the world. And we believe this only by noticing the confirmations and not keeping track of the disconfirmations. You could prove to the satisfaction of every scientist that intercessory prayer works if you set up a simple experiment. Get 1 billion Christians to pray for a single amputee. Get them to pray that God regrow that missing limb. This happens to salamanders every day, presumably without prayer. This is within the capacity of God. I find it interesting that people of faith only tend to pray for conditions that are self-limiting.
That's a misstatement there.
Let's go back to the Bible. The reason you believe that Jesus is the Son of God is because you believe that the gospel is a valid account of the miracles of Jesus.
It's one of the reasons.
Yeah, it's one of the reasons. Now, there are many testimonials about miracles, every bit as amazing as the miracles of Jesus in other literature of the world's religions, even contemporary miracles. There are millions of people who believe that Satya Sai Baba, the South Indian guru, was born of a virgin, has raised the dead, and materializes objects. I mean, you can watch some of his miracles on YouTube. Prepare to be underwhelmed. He's a stage magician. As a Christian, you can say Satya Sai Baba's miracle stories are not interesting. Let's not pay attention to them. But if you set them within the prescientific religious milieu of the first century Roman Empire, suddenly miracle stories become especially compelling.
Sam, what are the secular sources of an acceptable moral code?
Well, I don't think that the religious books are the source. We go to the Bible and we are the judge of what is good. We see the Golden Rule as the great distillation of ethical impulses, but the Golden Rule is not unique to the Bible or to Jesus. You see it in many, many cultures, and you see some form of it among non-human primates. I'm not at all a moral relativist. I think it's quite common among religious people to believe that atheism entails moral relativism. I think there is an absolute right and wrong. I think honor killing, for example, is unambiguously wrong. You can use the word evil. A society that kills women and girls for sexual indiscretion, even the indiscretion of being raped, is a society that has killed compassion, that has failed to teach men to value women, and has eradicated empathy. Empathy and compassion are our most basic moral impulses. And we can even teach the Golden Rule without lying to ourselves or our children about the origin of certain books or the virgin birth of certain people.
Rick, Christianity has conducted itself in an abjectly evil manner from time to time. How do you square that with the Christian gospel of love?
I don't feel duty-bound to defend stuff that's done in the name of God, which I don't think God approved or advocated. Have things been done wrong in the name of Christianity? Yes. Sam makes the statement in his book that religion is bad for the world. But far more people have been killed through atheists than through all the religious wars put together. Thousands died in the Inquisition. Millions died under Mao and under Stalin and Pol Pot. There is a home for atheists in the world today. It's called North Korea. I don't know any atheists who want to go there. I'd much rather live under Tony Blair or even George Bush. The bottom line is that atheists who accuse Christians of being intolerant are as intolerant.
How am I being intolerant? I'm not advocating that we lock people up for their religious beliefs. You can get locked up in Western Europe for denying the Holocaust. I think that's a terrible way of addressing the problem. This really is one of the great canards of religious discourse. The idea that the greatest crimes of the 20th century were perpetrated because of atheism. The core problem for me is divisive dogmatism. There are many kinds of dogmatism. There's nationalism, there's tribalism, there's racism, there's chauvinism, and there's religion. Religion is the only sphere of discourse where dogma is actually a good word, where it is considered ennobling to believe something strongly based on faith.
You don't feel atheists are dogmatic?
No, I don't.
I'm sorry, I disagree with you. You're quite dogmatic.
Okay, well, I'm happy to have you point out my dogmas, but first let me deal with Stalin. The killing fields in the Gulag were not the product of people being too reluctant to believe things on insufficient evidence. They were not the product of people requiring too much evidence and too much argument in favor of their beliefs. We have people flying planes in our buildings because they have theological grievances against the West. I'm noticing Christians doing terrible things explicitly for religious reasons. For instance, not funding embryonic stem cell research. The motive is always paramount for me. No society in human history has ever suffered because it has become too reasonable.
We're in exact agreement on that. I just happen to believe that Christianity saved reason. We would not have the Bill of Rights without Christianity.
That is a total caricature of...
No, let me finish. I let you caricature Christianity. If life is just random chance, then nothing really does matter and there is no morality. It's survival of the fittest. If survival of the fittest means me killing you to survive, so be it. For years, atheists have said there is no God, but they want to live like God exists. They want to live like their lives have meaning.
Our morality, the meaning we find in life, is a lived experience that I believe has, to use a loaded term, a spiritual component. I believe it is possible to radically transform our experience of the world for the better very much the way someone like Jesus or someone like Buddha witnessed. There is wisdom in our spiritual contemplative literature, and I'm quite interested in understanding it. I think that meditation and prayer affect us for the better. The question is, what is reasonable to believe on the basis of those transformations?
Please let me know if you would like to hear the full discussion, down in the comments. A link to the transcript is in the description if you would like to read the exchange instead. Thanks for watching.